Hi friends, my name is Akil Ahmed, and in this particular video tutorial I will talk about the stress database and how we can enable the stress database feature for a particular SQL database table. So the stress database feature securely and transparently archives your code or historical data from a local SQL Server database to Azure SQL database. This is a new feature in SQL Server 2016, and you can either move some specific data from an on-premises SQL Server to Azure, or you can move the whole data from an on-premises SQL Server to Azure. This can be helpful in the scenarios where we have, for example, millions of records in a table and only small data is accessed frequently. So in that particular case, we can move most of the data to the Azure from our on-premises SQL Server. So this is my portal.azure.com, and let me see how many databases I have in this particular Azure account. So in this Azure account, these are two servers, Learn SSIS and DPL SRV. So I will be using Learn SSIS in this particular example to store my database. So Learn SSIS logical server right now doesn't have any database. Alright, so let's go to the SQL Server 2016. So this is SQL Server 2016 and this is Management Studio. So to enable the stress database feature on our SQL Server 2016, execute this particular query, sys.sp_configure remote data archive 1. So once you have run this particular query, then you can enable the stress database feature on our SQL Server 2016 database table. So first of all, let's create a table city, which will have the ID as an int column and city as a varchar column and a dated column. So our city table has been created, and now let's insert some sample data into this particular table. So it has 5 number of records into this particular table. So let's enable the include actual execution plan, and if you rerun this particular query, so you can see the execution plan for this particular query. So after looking at the execution plan, you can see that the cost of the query is taken by 100% by the table scan operator. So we will be copying the data from this particular table, city table, to the Azure database. So right click on the database where table exists, and then go to the task and then select stretch, and inside it click enable. So this feature is only available in the SQL Server 2016 edition, and you cannot find the same option in the 2014. So click next, and then you can see the table in this particular database. So right now I have only one table, city. So select the table from here, and then there's an option of migrating the selected data or the entire data. So either you can move the entire data, or you can choose the rows, from this particular table. So you can put some conditions that where if ID is in a particular range, or if ID is equal to some particular data. For example, if ID should be 1, then you can choose that only this data will be moved to SQL Azure from our on-premises data. In this particular case, I want to move the entire table to the Microsoft Azure. So let it the entire table, and then click next. So if you go back to this particular case, so you will see that it has 5 number of records and 5 rows will be migrated to the Azure, and then you need to sign into the Microsoft Azure account. So I've typed my password. So I have signed in into my Azure account, and it had selected the default subscription from my account. So for this particular case, I will be choosing the West US location, as my SQL Azure server is situated on the West US. So select Azure server. So I have an existing Azure server, Learn SSIS, this server. So I will be using this particular server, and the server name is Learn SSIS, and authentication will be SQL authentication. yeah, and my login name is SQL admin, and now let me type my password and click next. And now it's asking for the password for the database master key, so let me provide one password for this as well. Click next, and then use source SQL server public IP. So it will create a firewall role so that I can connect to the Azure server from my own machine. And once you will click finish, so this will move data from my on-premises SQL Server database table to the Azure server. So right now it's configuring the stretch on the database test. Alright, so the stretch database feature has been enabled for our on-premises SQL Server database test. So let's close this particular window, and then if you go back to the SQL Server Management Studio, so you can notice that the icon of this particular database has been changed. So if you compare it like with other databases like Wide World Importers or DWQ database, so you can notice that the icon has been changed. And to verify that data has been moved from our on-premises SQL Server to the Microsoft Azure, right click on the database and then go to the task and then go to the stretch and click on monitor. So here you can see what the current status of the Azure data movement. So right now local rows are 5 and eligible rows for movement are 5 as well. So because I'm just seeing the data after just configuring the stretch, so it's showing that data is inside the local. But if you wait for a couple of minutes, so after if you will check this after a couple of minutes, so you can surely see that these 5 records should be in the rows in Azure side. So let's wait for a couple of minutes and then we can refresh this particular thing. Alright, so now you can see I have not refreshed it, it's auto refresh, and now you can see that the local rows are right now 0 and the rows in Azure are 5. So our data has been moved from on-premises SQL Server database to the Azure. So now if you execute this particular query sys.dm dba migration status, so if you execute this query, so you can see that there are 5 rows in the migrated rows. So it means that data has been moved to Azure. And now let's check it third time as well. So right now include actual execution plan is enabled, and if you execute this particular select query on the table city table on which we have configured the stretch database setting, so first of all you will notice that the query is running a little bit slow because it's selecting data, it's fetching data from the Microsoft Azure. And if you go to the execution plan, so you can see that the 76% of the query cost is taken by the remote query. So this remote query is fetching data from the Microsoft Azure. So you can see that the stretch feature has been enabled on this particular database table. Thanks guys for watching the video, and if you like the video then please click the like button and do subscribe to our channel to see more videos on SSIS and related technologies. Thank you.